Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're all well. It's the midweek hump still. That's it. The midweek hump. And we all love a midweek hump. I'm going to get straight into the meat and potatoes. This is part 2, if you like, of today's videos. Earlier on, we touched on how people, or how I felt people would behave had it have actually been Lucy who had become hurt and not, in fact, Jay. And I felt that people would have a very different opinion about this case in general. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Jay Slater is the person who became hurt. He became dead. And there's still a lot of questions. I did say that I probably wouldn't touch on this, but it caused outrage. Outrage. People are like, no, there's still a lot of questions, and there's going to be stuff come out, I would imagine, after the repatriation of the body and perhaps another autopsy. And there is questions. Now, I'm not going to get into the weeds like what some of these other people are doing and looking at all this TikTok shit. I ain't doing it. I ain't doing it unless you want to pay me. No, I'm only kidding. I don't want your money. I just want your love. Anyway, enough of that. Enough of that filthy shit. Let's get on with it. So, look, what we're talking about is Jay Slater is dead. We know that. Well, I'm 99.9% sure he is actually dead. The question is, was there foul play involved? Now, like I said in the video earlier, there's one question, and that is, how was it that law enforcement were able to determine that the last people to see Jay alive had no relevance to the investigation? And I gave people a challenge. I said, answer that. Answer that in a way that makes sense. Answer it in a way that makes sense. Bearing in mind, that was stated prior to Jay Slater being found. And I bet, without talking shit, nobody can answer that question properly. Because all it is at that stage is the last people to see him alive saying he left here all right. He came here and he left. Perhaps with one witness who just happened to be connected to the play, the connection there in the shop, who said, yeah, he left. I watched him. What? And we automatically fucking believe that person. Why? There's not one fucking shred of CCTV footage that supports anything that these people are saying. Not a fucking sausage. Ain't that just brilliant? So look, we have to accept what these people say. But again, they're trustworthy people. They're trustworthy. Definitely not ex-cons convicted of drug trafficking just happening to be at a place where there is a fucking rave, and then subsequently, after this happens, they get the fuck up out of Dodge. And look, I don't give a fuck. If anybody's got a problem with it, if anybody's got a problem with anything I say, fucking find me and come and have a chat about it. That's what I'll say. Because I will just put this out there. If Jay was my son, my cousin, a relative of mine, I would not be happy if this case was left as misadventure, for instance. And the reason why I wouldn't be happy is purely for that fucking reason. And that's not even about saying that Ayub Kasim or the other bloke, Rocky, whatever his fucking name is, Rocky and Bullwinkle, I'm not even saying they did anything directly. I'm not saying that at all. The fact is, however, that because law enforcement deemed them as no relevance to the situation, in my personal opinion, I feel that that is indicative of an investigation not being carried out thoroughly. And if an investigation is not carried out thoroughly, then there is room for interpretation that there could be something else that factored into what happened to Jay. Because we have to ask one question, and that is, like, you could go back and say, why did he go there in the first place? Why did Jay go there? And there's loads of things that we can say. They range from he just went there to hang out for a couple of hours, to he went there to buy something, he went there to sell something. Who fucking knows? But why did he leave there seemingly without charging his phone, for instance? And we have touched on this before, going over old ground, I get it, but I'm trying to make a point. Without charging his phone. At the very fucking least, why did he not charge his phone at all? Because his phone was apparently on 1%, as corroborated by his apparent friends. They were able to say his phone was on 1%. Phone was on 1% because Jay told him. So he was aware of the state of his phone. He, in accordance to what Ayub Qasim said, he had asked for a charger. So even then he knew the fucking phone needed charging. But apparently he didn't charge it. Why didn't he charge it? Based on, I'm assuming, based on the fact that he wears Moncler clothes and things like that, he seems to, he's obviously earning a bit of money through his bricklaying and what have you. So he had a bit of money. So I'm assuming he's got a up-to-date kind of Samsung or possibly a iPhone, which they will fast charge and you will get from 0 to 50% battery in around 30 to 40 minutes. But he didn't even do that. So that tells me he either very quickly decided that he had to get out of there, or what? What, he knew that his phone needed charging, he asked where the charger was, and then just decided not to charge it? Or did something happen in the meantime? Was Jay given something that then sent him off kilter? And what I mean by that is Jay Slater clearly wasn't compass mentis. Someone messaged yesterday and they were like, what if he was heading towards the coast or whatever? And we've said about the path of least resistance. Jay weren't going the path of least resistance. He was going in a direction that was getting more and more difficult, it would seem. And the only reason someone does that is for two things. I say that they're not of their right mind, or they are purposefully doing it. And the only reason someone would be purposefully doing it is if they feel that they are being followed and they don't want people to follow and they feel that they've got to hide from someone. Well, that's it. They're your two options. I don't think anybody who was fucking compass mentis would have taken the route that he took. And if he wasn't compass mentis, then why wasn't he? Was that because something was going on and he was in a rush to get away? Or was it because he'd taken something, done something that meant that he weren't thinking straight? And if either of those two things come in as a factor here, then this isn't misadventure. To a degree, you could argue that it is, but there are external factors that have influenced what has happened. Does that make sense? If this finishes as it is now, if Jay Slater was your relative, you had skin in the game, can you honestly tell me that you would be happy? Happy to just leave it as it is? Done. Misadventure. Case closed. Signed, sealed. Bosh. Done. Because I wouldn't. And it is because of that one factor. That one factor that, how can it be deemed prior to even finding him that the last people to see him alive are irrelevant to the investigation? This is almost like it had already been decided how this was going to play out and what the conclusion would be, because that was the best way to protect the area. They wanted to keep the faces away from it. They didn't want the family near it. They didn't want people joining in on the search. They didn't want people to know they were searching. They didn't want the family to even check his body. Nothing. The testing for DNA was done in a way that would remove the factor of the family in it. They done it behind their backs, as much as we can know to this point. But my point is, Jay Slater left there for a reason. He spent literally 2 hours there. And during that time, he didn't charge his phone. He left there needing a drink, wanting food apparently, turned down a lift, ignored a bus, and seemingly walked himself into terrain that was getting worse and worse and worse and would eventually lead to his death. And everybody well, not everybody, but a lot of people seem to believe that nothing else comes into play here. Maybe it doesn't, but the truth of the matter is it doesn't even seem to have been considered, and that's what concerns me. Let me know down below what you think, and I'll catch you all in the next one.